Ms. Richardson, at your convenience, we'll begin with you first, please.
Is it on? Hello, good morning. I would like to first express my sincere gratitude to Chairman Ossoff and Ranking Member Johnson for the opportunity to testify before you today. My name is Carolyn Richardson. I was incarcerated in federal BOP custody from August 2016 through October 2022, when my motion for compassionate release was granted on the grounds of extraordinary, compelling circumstances. I suffered while I was in Metropolitan Correctional Center in New York. My testimony will focus on repeated sexual abuse that I suffered for several months at the hands of former correctional officer Colin Akparanta. While I struggle to speak about the abuse, I'm hopeful that my testimony will give voice to survivors in similar circumstances and help prevent sexual crimes in BOP facilities. In August 2016, I was indicted for my participation in a conspiracy to procure and distribute oxycodone. I am deeply remorseful for what I had done, which was fueled by my own addiction to oxycodone. I accepted a guilty plea and was sentenced to 12 years in prison, knowing that I would miss so many years with my 6 children. What I did not know was that I would come to suffer neglect and abuse in BOP custody that will forever change my life. Prior to my arrest, I had received an iris transplant, artificial iris implant, for cosmetic purposes. When I was taken into custody, I had normal vision and was in good physical health. Shortly after arriving in MCC, New York, in August of 2016, I began to experience complications with my transplanted irises. BOP personnel failed to provide me with timely medical care and caused my eyesight to deteriorate beyond repair. When I was finally taken to an eye surgeon in January 2017, I learned that due to the delay, I will be permanently legally blind and will require extensive eye treatment. Since then, I required periodic visits to outside hospitals, including 7 eye surgeries. Former Correctional Officer Akparanta was the BOP correction officer tasked with taking me to these hospital appointments. I was in an extremely vulnerable state, physically, mentally, and spiritually due to my medical condition, and Akparanta preyed on this fact. When he took me to doctor's appointments, Akparanta made himself out to be someone I could trust. He talked to me about faith and spirituality, which was of central importance to me in coping with my loss of vision. He brought me food and medicine that I needed, but that I could not otherwise obtain. Right at my most vulnerable, I believed that here was a person who cared about me when no one else did. I was wrong. After several months, in around May 2018, Akparanta began to demand sexual favors in exchange for the food and medicine that he brought. He switched from working the day shift to night shift and came to my cell at night. I did not have a cellmate. He told me that my cell was in a perfect area because the security cameras could not see him coming or going. He was the only officer working the night shift in my unit, which consisted of approximately 40 female prisoners. He used a flashlight to signal to me that he was coming to my cell. I felt utterly powerless. I was a vision-impaired prisoner who was relying on Akparanta for basic life needs and transportation to medical appointments. For about 6 months, Akparanta regularly demanded sexual favors from me. He became increasingly rough and cruel in the way that he treated me. I told him that I did not like it, but he continued in his conduct. Before the assaults, he would act like he cared about me and would ask me what was wrong when I was looking down or sad. After sexual assaults began, he stopped showing any signs of caring, and all he wanted was sexual favors. I felt disgusted with him, but also with myself. I felt worthless, like I was something less than human that he could do with as he wished. When I indicated that I did not like what he was doing, Akparanta suggested that we would both get in trouble if I were to tell. I believed him. I was terrified that he or other BOP staff would retaliate against me or take away my privileges. I was afraid of being questioned and doubted. I felt that officers would stick together instead of believing me or caring for me, especially after Operanta manipulated me. I felt that everyone had ulterior motives, but then I felt ashamed and blamed myself for not speaking up about the abuse. I felt like I should have yelled and screamed when he was sexually assaulting me, even though at that time I felt that I had no real voice. Further details of abuse can be found in Exhibit A, complaint filed in my civil lawsuit. Even though BOP has a zero tolerance policy towards sexual abuse, in reality, it is extremely difficult for inmates to step up and report the abuse. It feels that there is no real protection from the guards retaliating against you under a pretext or harassing you with their authority. Even when the abuse is reported, inmates are kept in the dark about the progress of the investigation, and the repeated questioning is jarring and emotionally scarring to relive the trauma. I could personally gain a small measure of peace by cooperating with the criminal prosecution with Operanta, resulting in his guilty plea, and by my civil lawsuit, which allowed me to gain information and knowledge about what happened. However, my hope is that no other inmate will have to suffer similar abuse, and that safeguards will be put in place to ensure that. I am appreciative of this opportunity to share my experience that I had in MCC. I stand here for other female inmates who have experienced sexual abuse, many of whom may feel that they are alone, without anyone to care about their story, like I used to feel. I hope in sharing this we can improve our system and prevent this from ever happening again. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Richardson, for your testimony.
Ms. Richardson, what about you? Did you ever report this to anybody when you were in prison?
No, sir, I didn't. Actually, I have found out through a former inmate that Operanta had been arrested for it, and that empowered me to come forward. But prior to that, I would have never told anyone because I was mandated to be there in MCC because I was on medical hold for my eyes, and I had already been sentenced.
Ms. Richardson, you stated in court, you described a meeting in 2017 where a BOP supervisor told you and other assembled female prisoners, quote, "I don't want to hear nothing about my officers touching you." And another officer who ignored pleas for help from a group of female prisoners and said that your abuser, quote, "will eventually get caught." What was it like to hear those things, and what, in your view, was it about MCC New York and the environment there that contributed to that culture?
Well, two of those statements weren't actually made by me. It was made by my the other ladies on the complaint. But I did hear one of the statements by Counselor Lewis, and at the time it didn't register to me what it actually meant. But the dynamics of that place, like I said before, you know, wrong or right, doesn't matter. They all stick together.
Unpack that a little bit for us, please, Ms. Richardson.
Well, just like you said the statement of that was Counselor Lewis. She's saying, well, you know, I don't want to hear anything about what my officers are doing to you ladies. Everybody wants to cover their own butt, so they basically stick. You know, they don't do anything about what they hear. They sort of like sweep it under the carpet.
Thank you, Ms. Richardson.
So I guess what I'd like to ask the three witnesses is, within the spectrum of isolated to pervasive, you know, having talked to fellow prisoners, do you have any sense whatsoever that this is you were unfortunately a victim of an isolated problem? And maybe it's different for every facility. It probably is different for different facilities, but do you have any kind of sense whatsoever in terms of what kind of problem we're dealing with here? Just something, again, that you were the unfortunate victim of an isolated case, or you're just unfortunate victim of something that's pervasive within the prison population of women's prison? I'll start with you, Ms. Richardson.
Well, I was one of 7 victims from MCC that the officer pled guilty to, and that was in the pretrial facility that I was housed in for 4.5 years when I was transferred to Tallahassee Florida. Prior to me just leaving in October, there's 3 inmates there that was sexually assaulted by an officer which was walked off the compound. So it seems to be at all of the facilities.
I want to take this opportunity to thank each and every one of you, and I want to thank in particular you, Ms. Richardson, Ms. Moore, and Ms. De La Rosa for coming forward, for having the strength and courage to address the U.S. Senate in this setting, to speak publicly about what you endured, to help senators and the entire Congress to understand the dynamics that led to this exploitation, that led to the horrific ordeals that you suffered. Please know that we will continue to work on the basis of what you shared with us, and I believe that the courage you've demonstrated today will inspire and empower others as well to share their stories. So it's with gratitude and admiration for your courage that I thank you